It's lose-lose. Why would anybody want to be there? People think that people's perception is that being in U.S. Treasury is the safest place they can be. They're going to lose a lot of money. A lot of money. Because eventually the dollar will be devalued. And eventually it will come down in value against other currencies. And it will certainly come down in value against gold.
Another question came in. It's more for a comment. And this is a comment about back in September, you had both Bernanke, you had the New York Federal Reserve President Tim Geithner, you had, along with the Bush administration led by Treasury Secretary Paulson, and they all agreed to let the fourth largest investment bank, Lehman Brothers, go bankrupt, which defaulted on billions of dollars worth of derivatives and other obligations held by investors around the world. And now that event is now just widely accepted as it triggered a global financial panic and set the major markets for the Weimar condition.
So what's the question?
Huh?
What is the question?
Well, I think he just wants your comment and confirmation.
Well, I think I covered a great deal of it, but Weimarization, to coin a phrase, is a distinct possibility. Whether we'll get that sort of inflation remains to be seen, but inflation is certainly going to go as high as 30% during this period, and maybe a lot more. And you don't have to have Weimarization or Zimbabweization in order for everything to go upside down. And so things may be bad, but they may not get worse. Things may be bad and worse, and they won't get worse than that. It's a gradated thing. We just don't know. I mean, we're all guessing. All we know is we got a problem. A very, very bad problem. And we know that there's going to be great suffering. We know that there's going to be warfare and pestilence and death, usually the innocents, more than anyone else. And we got to prepare for it. Going out that far is too difficult. All I know what we're dealing with now is inflation. We're going to have hyperinflation very shortly in March or April, May, in that time frame. Interest rates are going to move higher later in the year. The dollar's going to go down against other currencies, and all currencies are going to go down against gold. When we're going to have deflation, I don't know. I rather guess it's 1 or 2, maybe even 3 years away. They're going to continue to do this as long as they can get away with it. They know it can't work. That's why they're having a war. Last time we blamed it on the Japanese, and we attacked the Germans too. How it'll work this time, I don't know. But I do know it's going to happen. And all our children and grandchildren will be dragged off to be murdered. So get ready for it. That's what your government and the people who control your government, almost all your politicians, are nothing but evil, corrupt people.
There's a lot of talk about confiscation, and you even mentioned the person's name, Talente. What do you think? When do you think the bank holiday and confiscation will happen? What are your suggestions?
I don't think there'll ever be confiscation. It's the people today do not own gold like they did in the 1930s. Everybody was rocking around with gold in their pocket. Very few Americans own gold today. So why bother? Let's upset them about something else. like taking their home or their car, or maybe even their guns, or attempt to do that. And compliance was about 25% in the 1930s. It'll be about 10% this time. And if the government comes and bangs on your door at 3 a.m., they may be met with a hail of gunfire. It ain't the same. And I don't see confiscation happening in that realm, but I do see a distinct possibility of the confiscation in the gold in street shares, which is GLD, which is the exchange traded fund, of which there's 700 tons of gold or whatever it is. I can't even remember. I write about it every week, but it's not stuck in my mind. That's what they're going to go after. And professionals own that, for the most part. Now, there's some individuals in there, but they probably make up 5% of the holders, and most of them are traders. The institutions own that, so they don't mind getting dollars back for their gold. They don't care, particularly if they get a premium. And so that's where the government will get gold to back up a new currency. It's probably why they set it up.
Yeah, but Bob, wouldn't you think that if they regulated that and took that gold, that they would just make a general order, one executive order to include all of it, instead of just pinpointing that gold?
No.
No?
And it wouldn't be an executive order. It may be. But they're going to say, look, we need the gold for the backing on the dollar because we're going to devalue it by 10 to 1, and the ETF's got 700 or 1,000 tons of gold or whatever the figure is. We need it to go along with what we got now, which is nothing, or whatever they have now, because nobody knows. The last audit was 1954. So if you're logical and reasonable, you have to assume they have none. And so maybe it would be an executive order. They go and take the gold, and then they do their thing. They're not going to mess around with people to collect, what, $20 million worth of gold or $20 billion? It's not worth it.
Do you think there'll be a bank holiday?
Oh, there could be. But they won't last long because the country can't function. And that's why I tell people, if you can, in your safe at home, along with your gold and silver coins, your ammo, and your weapons, you have $5,000 in 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s. So if the bank is closed, at least you can go out and buy something if people are still accepting dollar bills. If they're not, well, then you're going to use 90% silver dimes, quarters, and halves. And maybe some gold coins. Or maybe you can buy a truck full of beans. Canned beans, of course, or sack beans, for 2 gold coins. I mean, who knows? This is where we're headed. Don't think we're not.
Got about a couple minutes left. Al Jazeera, Russian giant gas pump says Ukraine has blocked gas deliveries to Europe, dashing hopes of ending a row which has hit several countries' supplies.
Well, it's fine. Then let Europe invade them. That's the answer. And if Europe wants the Russians to help, they'll certainly oblige. So the Europe can send their troops along with the Russians over the Ukraine and occupy a bankrupt country and take it over. And the Ukrainians don't have much of anything to fight back with. So there would be very little bloodshed. That's what really should be done. They've been stealing Russian gas for the last 9 years. They're crooks. In this case, the Russians are the good guys. All they want is people to pay the going rate. And they've given Ukraine, for the last 10 years, 15 years, a break. I mean, they've been given to them with about 50 or 40% off. Ukraine is corrupt. So that's how you solve it.
And we are out of time. We had one more question about Bin Laden. He's dead, so...
forget him.
Huh?
He's dead, forget him.
Yep. We'll be back on Friday. Make sure you tune in. Thank you for joining us. Wendy Wilson will be here tomorrow. So until then, be safe. Good night and God bless. Good night, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.